know something, maniacs? Hulk Hogan here, the greatest of all time, with the largest arms in the world, brother. You know something? I'm here doing Outbound Life. I'm with the McCormick Brothers. We're going to be running wild. We're going to be talking about wrestling. We're going to be talking about Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. We're going to be talking about training, prayers, and vitamins. So what you going to do when Hulk Hogan, the largest arms in the world, and the McCormick Brothers run wild on you?
We're the McCormick Brothers, Kyler and Cody, and we believe your life is the ultimate work of art.
While building our adventure filmmaking brand, The Outbound Life, it's unlocked doors we never thought possible. We've traveled the world, landed Fortune 500 clients, and have spoken on stages all across the country sharing these experiences.
But we still have a lot to learn. We now invite you along on our journey as we sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and diverse thought leaders to discuss how to live a life we consider outbound, one where you believe your story matters and live beyond your limits.
Come along and live the Outbound Life.
Well, Hulk, we just hit the record button. Are we good just to jump into this?
Now let's rock.
We were trying to think of how we would start this. So, the natural thing is trying to figure out like what we have in common. So Kyler and I both like to work out, but we don't have the 24-inch pythons. We don't fly private when we go places. We've never body slammed Andre the Giant. But what I think we might have in common is that we've all swam with sharks.
Whoa.
Is that true? You've swam with sharks?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so back in 2019, Kyler and I were filming a promo with Shark Week with Discovery, and we went to Stewart Cove. And
so I think that's where you went as well. Was it Bahamas? Was it Stewart Cove?
I've been down with Stewart 3 or 4 times.
No way.
When we were filming, oh my God, what were we filming? Assault on Devil's Island.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen those movies.
Yeah. And then there was the
With
Thunder
Carl
one,
Weathers.
the Thunder show, Thunder in Paradise.
Thunder in Paradise. We used Stewart Cove for all that stuff, man. We've had crazy stuff happen down there with sharks, believe me.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I mean, for us, that was probably one of the craziest experiences, and I just wanted to hear, like, I mean, you've shared that, yeah, there were some crazy things that happened. What was that like for you, like being? Maybe take us back to the first time. What was that like being with sharks for the first time? Were you apprehensive to doing it? Was this like, oh, sharks, cool? Like, how was that for you?
Well, a lot of people don't realize, right here on the Gulf of Mexico where I live, and I've been here my whole life, I live on the beach, there's sharks everywhere.
Yeah.
People walk out waist deep water and they think, sharks are within 100 yards of you. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
If you ever go up on a parasail and go down the beach, you can see the sharks, So my main thing is early in the morning and late afternoon, for some reason when the sun sets, they come up on north of Caladesi Island where I live, and they come right down the beach, and they'll be in 2-3 feet of water, and they're just looking for chum or food or just something. Even if they're not really hungry, they'll hit anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, my friends will come over and they'll send their kids, go swim in the sunset. I'm going, no, don't go out there, because I've seen so many of them out there, but I'm so used to it.
Right.
One of my ex-wives actually liked to snorkel all the time.
Yeah.
Go out right where it dropped off. So I would, my peripheral vision, and, when it's real calm, you can see everything pretty much. The water's so clear.
Yeah.
I would always keep an eye out. I'd see a little fin here. I'd see a bump there. I wouldn't even tell her, right? But one time I had a bull shark go behind us and get behind us.
So it's like pushing you out into the water.
Yeah. We were about 30 yards out, probably chest deep water. And all of a sudden I saw this fin come, and I didn't want to say anything, but it got behind me, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm starting to get scared, And so the shark kind of like came towards me a little bit, and it just turned off, swam right by my wife about 3 feet away from her. I never said anything.
That was the secret. Yeah.
But yeah, that's, my heart was pounding then.
Yeah.
But I've had, run-ins like in the Bahamas I rented like a pontoon boat for all the kids.
Yeah.
A slide on it. It had kayaks and jet skis and stuff. Plus I had a regulator, It was on like a 150-foot hose.
Yeah.
So,
is that like the Nuba or Snuba?
Yes.
Kinda,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So a buddy of mine was down.
Yeah.
Regulator on. All of a sudden he pops up and he just screams, "Shark, shark!" And he's just slashed into the water trying to get by me. So I just dropped down into the water to see what was coming. There was like a 12-foot tiger shark coming right at me, man.
Gosh.
And it just kept coming and coming. So I was just backing up nice and slow as he's thrashing behind me. Hoping this is going to bite anybody.
Thrashing is what you're not supposed to do in the water.
Yeah, you want to stay calm.
We all know that part.
Draw more attention.
Yeah, so he's thrashing. I'm hoping that if he's going to hit something, he'll go by me and get him, you know?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I hit backpedal, and he got about 3 feet in front of me, you know, and all of a sudden he just went right by me and just kept swimming, you know, but nothing aggressive, you know, but all of a sudden your heart rate just flies when it happens to you. But I see them all the time, man. They're everywhere. Most people, and you know, if you're here in Clearwater, there was a party spot on the Clearwater Channel here called Shepherd.
Okay.
Where the kids, I mean, there's hundreds of kids. They're out there drinking. There's all these go fast boats out there. They're standing out in waist deep water all day. That's the channel where all the fishing boats come in. They cut all the chum and throw all the fish heads and the guts off.
Yeah.
As they're coming in the channel, all the sharks just follow them right in.
Yeah.
Going, this is crazy that people are just standing in the water out here.
But it's a whole other thing. Like so being at the beach and there's sharks potentially nearby and like often, but versus you're actually out there in the Bahamas and like for the sake of the TV show, right? They're literally chumming by you, trying to get the sharks close. Like was that like how close did they get to you? Was that different? Was that intense, or was it just kind of like, oh, I'm used to this. I've come from the ocean.
You know, when we were doing Thunder in Paradise, I can't remember the episode, but we had something where we had to go rescue a couple Navy SEALs that were hit. So me and Carl Weathers, you know, we had this whole thing where I had to put a wounded Navy SEAL on my back and swim with him. So Stuart Cove, we need a shark, you know, to have like a real close call. It was in the script. You know, the writers write anything thinking it's going to be easy to do. So we went out and we caught like a 10-foot tiger shark about 7 a.m, right? And he was not happy. He was thrashing, carrying on. So Stuart Cove goes, let's anchor him to the bottom. He won't be able to oxygenate his gills, and we'll go shoot all day. And at the end of the day, we'll come back and get him, right? So I'm like, man, this doesn't sound safe to me, you know? So Stuart Cove tied a rope around his tail, tied an anchor around his tail. Then he went downstairs and with a drilled holes in his tail and tied monofilament line to his tail. And
that's like shaking up the beehive, right? Like you're just going into the belly of the beast there.
Dude, if we'd got caught the coast, we'd still be in jail. The Coast Guard would still have us in jail. So anyway, we go film all day long, right? We come back at the end of the day, the sun's setting. We go over to the spot we had marked. We dive down. The shark is madder than he was before, right?
Oh, man.
So, you know, all of a sudden we get the shot lined up. I put a stunt man on my back. He puts chum in his BC in his vest, and he's on my back. So I'm supposed to be swimming underwater. And I got a little scooter I'm hanging on to. Okay. And there's another stunt man over there going to give me the thumbs up when the shark's right over my right shoulder where I can't see him. And I was supposed to turn up and bump him with a scooter, right?
Okay.
So all of a sudden I got this stunt guy on my back. He's got shark bites all over him because he's worked down there with Stuart Cove forever.
Yeah.
He's got shark bites everywhere. And I'm just freaked out about this whole thing. So all of a sudden I'm riding with a scooter. I look over to the stunt man. He's thumbs up, thumbs up. When I turn around, the shark's mouth was right here.
Oh my God.
Wide open because they had him on the monofilament line and they were leading him into me, you know, and he was following the chum.
Okay.
And I turned that scooter on. I couldn't even get it under his chin to hit him. I just hit him in the snout with the scooter. Stuart Cove goes, perfect. Let's do one more. And I just gave him the middle finger. I gave him the middle finger. I'm going up.
Rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was too close to turn around and see a tiger shark's mouth wide open right by your ear.
Yeah.
But other than that, things have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's another experience when you're with like a predator like that in their natural habitat. Because I think, like I would just say the line of work that we're in general, to most people, we do pretty adventurous, like extreme activity type things. Yeah. To the people that do those like day in, day out, like we still barely scratch the surface. But to us, that was a pretty crazy experience for us. And I think there's one thing, like you're going with the professionals and something that they do every day. And there's a bit of a like a consumer side to it where you can pay money and like go, you know, snorkel and see the sharks. But I think what changes is when there's like a film component involved, when they're pushing the bounds.
They're trying to get you as close to those sharks as possible for one shot.
And we had an experience where it was, so my wife came with and she was on the boat. So from the boat, like you can't see what's going on down there.
Yeah.
And when Kyler and I got in the water, and given for this activity, we weren't snorkeling, we weren't scuba diving, we were snorkeling on the top of the water. So at first you start where you've got the diver down there with the chum bucket, and they're like 20 feet down, and they got like 15 sharks the size of us, and they're swarming, and it's just like this is a surreal experience. But then they start to bring the sharks higher and higher to the point that they're like a couple feet below us, and they're pulling out the chum. And that's when, we didn't hear all this, but on the boat, there was a bit of an argument between the film crew and the dive crew of like how close they could get or what they were doing. And they were trying to chum, they're throwing chum like right next to us. And the sharks are coming. I'll never forget this one, it's a Caribbean reef shark the size of me. It's coming straight out.
Probably longer. Those things get up to probably like 7-10 feet, somewhere in there.
Yeah. But it's coming right at me and just runs right into me. I mean, I was like, I can't do anything here. I'm trying not to move because splash in the water is the last thing you want to do. But you're completely vulnerable. You can't do anything.
Well, they're unpredictable. I don't care how what a setup you're down there with the professionals. They're unpredictable.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you just never know.
Well, and the professionals are in chainmail, and then we're in neoprene, and
cool.
it's an experience. So.
And when you're down there too, like even though you get like the high level, here's the instructions, do this, don't do that. You're like, all right, sounds good.
Keep your arms in.
Keep all hands, feet, and objects in the ride, right? But when you're down there, it's funny how many questions you start having. Like, I wish I asked, like, am I not supposed to make eye contact with them? And because we're not doing the full like scuba thing, we're just snorkeling, on the surface. Every now and then I'd get salt water in my goggles. So then instead of going from laying straight, I'd have to go up, above water, take the goggles off. But when I'm doing that, I'm still flapping underwater.
Right.
So I'm thinking, what happens if I kick one of these things in the face and it takes my leg, So
you should have just cleared your mask when you're underwater.
Yeah, well,
if Kyler were a professional, he probably would have done that.
There you go.
The weirdest thing was when we were filming Thunder in Paradise, we filmed at Disney. I had a choice to film at Disney or Universal. Both studios wanted the show, but at the end of the day, Disney had the post-production we needed.
Okay.
And we were doing everything ourselves. I was partners with Burke, Schwartz, and Bone and the Baywatch guys.
Okay.
When Hasselhoff did it, I went ahead and took his 25% position. What they did was Disney also accommodated us. They built us a pool because when we weren't doing running shots or out in the Gulf of Mexico or on the East Coast of Miami diving, we were in the pool doing dialogue. And then when we needed sharks, we'd go into the living seas at Disney.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen that, the living seas.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
They've got every type of shark you could possibly imagine.
Wow, yeah.
And even though they're unpredictable, if there could ever be a group of sharks that's domesticated, it's those sharks.
Gotcha.
Because they get fed at 7 a.m. and they're lazy as heck. And so at 7 a.m, the divers go in, they all come out and they get fed, then they go to sleep.
Okay.
Get fed again in the afternoon at 2.
It's kind of like SeaWorld, right?
Right. And if we went down there at 11 or 12 in the morning, they wouldn't come out and work with us because they've been fed and they're taking their nap, right? So we'd go down and try to hit it either early in the morning at 6 or getting in there about 1:30 before the divers came to film them, So I had Brutus Beefcake at the time helping me with, I had a stunt guy, plus I had Brutus as a body double for long running shots, like with a wide shot if the boat was running 100 yards out, you could shoot it with Brutus on it. You couldn't tell it wasn't me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I did have him coming in the tank with me for fight scenes as a bad guy. So he was getting dressed in the makeup room. I went and got some fish chum and put it in his BC and didn't tell him. Bad move. Because the sharks hadn't eaten yet, and we went down like at 1:30, a half hour before they were going to eat, and they all went after him.
Yeah.
And he started
Wait, so this
panicking.
was like a joke that you were
doing? Joke gone bad.
That's a rough joke.
Yeah, I know, bro. I felt really bad about it. Thank God he got out there without getting bit. But, they were ready to eat, and they wanted to eat real quick and go back to sleep. And he had it all in his BC, and he had no idea he had it. And they were just hitting him, actually coming up and bumping him and stuff. And finally, I had to pull the BC off him to put it on the other side of the tank just to get him away from it. But he was not happy with me at all. But it was funny.
Well, probably
I
funny
think
that
makes
it
for a
ended
good
that
story.
way,
Yeah.
right?
It was funny at the time, but then it got unfunny real fast.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
I've had a couple of experiences with sharks.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So if we're talking, we could talk a little more about. Curious to hear some of the wrestling career, but even like music, how music played into obviously your earlier years. You were playing guitar and bass, and then you at some point make this leap into wrestling.
Right.
I think like there's a side of any type of performance that it just correlates to whatever type of entertainment you're in. And I'm curious if you can make different correlations on like how playing music sets you up for wrestling at one point.
Yeah. Great question, because you're spot on with that. I mean, sometimes these wrestlers will be at the performance center and working out, with Shawn Michaels or whoever's there. And then as soon as they get in front of a crowd, they're way behind the curve. This is a whole learning curve. What I had was, playing music for 10 years and being in front of live audiences and live crowds, small, very small, and some very big at the time. You had a rapport with the crowd. You weren't afraid to walk up to the microphone and talk, or to be over animated and have fun on stage when you're playing, and really get into it. And being in front of that crowd I wasn't spooked the first time I went out to wrestle. You know what I mean? I wasn't freaked. Oh my God, there's people out there. I didn't out. So there was a direct correlation between, I call it having seat time. Like if you're gonna
like racing, yeah.
Right. If you're going to get to NASCAR, you better put some serious seat time in before you get in a NASCAR.
Right.
Same thing with wrestling. Before you go and start wrestling in Madison Square Garden, you better put some serious seat time in. Otherwise, you'll poop the bed when you get there. You'll mess real bad. So, I had already had a bunch of seat time in with being in front of a crowd. So as soon as I made that transition into wrestling, I'm like, oh man, this is really easier than what I was doing as far as the rapport from the crowd. Because they were very responsive in the wrestling business, whereas a bunch of drunks in a bar aren't quite as responsive, And so it really helped me get ready. It gave me a little bit of a head start with most of the guys who were just, just like, for instance, Brian Blair. I don't know if you know him, the Killer Bee, Brian Blair. Him and I started together, and Paul Orndorff, we all started together. Yeah. So when they went out in front of the crowd, they had a little bit tougher time than I did the first couple of times. But yeah, it helped a lot playing music and having that seat time, working with the crowd for sure.
Yeah, so you were already getting all these hours in front of, like, because you're working people, right? Isn't that
right.
There's the technique, but you're essentially working a crowd and working a room. And growing up, like, you had all these influences, right? You had the Dusty Rhodes, you had the superstar Billy Graham, these people who were their own characters. Like, do you feel like by the time you stepped in a ring, you're kind of taking all these experiences from work with people, but also looking at your heroes and thinking, how do I kind of morph these things together?
Exactly, man. You guys are spot on. That's exactly what I did. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, Dusty Rhodes was the main man here, And I don't know how familiar you are with his work in the early days, but he was
the American Dream.
Hulk Hogan on fire.
Sure. Yeah.
And he had everybody hooked here because we'd never seen anybody like him. So if he wasn't on TV one week, we were mad. I mean, when we went and wrestled at shop class and at phys ed class, we were very aggressive if Dusty wasn't on TV that week,
Yeah.
Between watching Dusty and then all of a sudden when superstar Billy Graham came down, I don't know if you know this guy, but he was managed by a guy named Oliver Humperdinck, Sir Oliver Humperdinck.
Yeah. I remember hearing something. Yeah.
He managed Bam Bam Bigelow.
Okay.
He was a red-haired guy. He was a manager here at Florida Championship Wrestling. He came from Minnesota. And he started showing up where I was playing music, right?
Gotcha.
And we had when I came back to Florida and I came off the road from playing, we had a really hot band here in Florida called Ruckus. And so if we played on Clearwater Beach, we'd have this crazy crowd. And then we'd play in North Tampa and the same crowd would kind of like follow us. And we had much bigger equipment, almost like, actually we had more equipment than a lot of bands that play like Tampa Stadium and stuff.
Wow.
And when we played, the whole room would just bump, stomp, bump, bump. The whole room would move.
Pretty epic.
I mean, it was like crazy stuff.
And this is like rock music. Like what was
Right.
Ruckus's
Funk. We played rock funk.
Oh, okay.
Fun.
Like a band called Mother's Finest.
Okay.
And if you were to listen to them, that's the type of stuff we were playing.
Okay.
Okay. I'll
And
have to look it
so
up.
all of a sudden the wrestlers started showing up, and actually, wherever we played, there would be a huge female following also because the music was so good and it was just a party,
Yeah.
So when I met Oliver Humperdinck, huge mark, oh man, wow, I was scared to death of the wrestlers, cauliflower ears, teeth knocked out. They're all over 300 pounds. It wasn't like getting in the business today. If you wanted to be a wrestler, you had to take somebody's livelihood away. I'd have if Cody was 300 pounds, I'd have to walk in, take his job, take the money out of his family's mouth, and take his livelihood away. There are 8 or 9 guys in the dressing room, and there's an opening for wrestlers.
Yeah. Wow.
So I didn't realize what I was getting into quite. But then, when I was hanging around and I saw the wrestlers, I wasn't afraid of them as I was before.
Okay.
The more they hung around, I didn't know it was a work. They used to beat the crap out of each other. Nowadays everybody's smartened up and they think they're smart to the business. They still don't have a clue what's really going on, but I'm smart.
Really quick, Hulk, just for our listeners, because not everybody is like wrestlers fans, like familiar with like work and a shoot, some of these terms. You want to just give a quick definition of those terms?
Yeah, well, working is something when you're in the ring with a guy and, and you have to work with him several nights in a row. You don't really want to hurt him. The goal is to go in there, make it look like you're tearing somebody's head off, but not hurt him at all.
Yeah.
So if someone's grabbing my wrist, they can barely touch my wrist. If they grab my wrist and twist it and they're barely touching, I'll go.
Right.
Now, if they really want to hurt me, they grab my wrist and hook me, and take me back to a submission hold. That's a shoot when you're actually trying to hurt somebody. There's a way to grab a headlock this way, but as soon as you turn the headlock this way and put that bone against their cheek, it's a shoot. Yeah, you can actually break somebody's orbital socket or actually make them pass out if you put just a headlock on the right way. So for the fans that don't know, that's the difference between a work and a shoot. Work is when you're trying to not hurt your buddy in there you're making money with. Shoot is when you're trying to really screw him up.
So that's something you learned like midway. You're getting into this and you didn't know that it's all set up.
To digress and go back, after I met Oliver Humperdinck, I said one of the dumbest things I've ever said. I said, I want to talk to you about wrestling. And he was nice. He was always coming around with the band. So I went over to his apartment. I'll never forget. I sat in his apartment, not knowing anything about the wrestling business. I said, I'm going to be the greatest wrestler that ever lives. That's a heat getter, bro. To tell another wrestler that's a big heat getter. I didn't realize at the time. I was young and dumb. And so when I went down to get in the wrestling business, I guess they thought that was my attitude. So they went ahead and taught me a lesson and broke my leg the first day, So that was my first day going down to Florida Championship Wrestling.
Man.
Besides, until I was ready to black out. Then Matsuda put his elbow on my shin, grabbed my toe, and snapped my leg.
Wow.
And they said, don't ever come back again. So that was my initiation into the wrestling business. But
you clearly went back.
Yeah. I waited about 3 months later, and then I went back. Maybe 4 months I went back, and my dad was very upset with me. He goes, don't you ever let anybody hurt you again like that. So I went back with a different attitude, And before, when I went there, I didn't want to, try to be physically that aggressive. I thought I was coming there to learn,
Okay.
And go with the flow. And all of a sudden, bam, they snapped my leg. I didn't know I was supposed to block you and try to protect you or punch in the face if you try to hurt me. I didn't know that.
Right.
I thought they were going to teach me the right ways, because I didn't know how to wrestle at all. So that was my first experience. But back then when I broke in and I came back, they freaked out when I came back. And then I called every single day. I called every day to come down there and work out with somebody. I was like relentless. I wouldn't let it go. So they said, wow, now we better take care of this kid because he's a big kid.
Yeah.
Don't want to get him in the wrestling business and have me go in a bar and get beat up. So they taught me all the hooks and the submissions and everything that you really don't need nowadays. But back then you had to be able to take care of yourself in case you got in a bad spot. And wrestling in Japan in the late 70s was a lot different than it is now. And people don't understand that, And then once I became the champion, I had a target on my back.
Okay.
And it wasn't like it was. I'd go to the Philadelphia Spectrum to wrestle Paul Orndorff, and Vince McMahon would say, okay, drop the leg on Orndorff would get a 1, 2, 3, and Orndorff would go, no, I'm not doing that. Vince didn't even have control of the wrestlers in the early 80s.
Wow. It was the Wild West.
The fastest gun, bro.
Wow.
And Piper wouldn't do a job, wouldn't put me over. And I love Roddy to death. We didn't like each other for a long time, but at the end of the day, before he passed away, we got to be very good friends the last 4 or 5 years. I said, Roddy, if you put me over once, then we could have trusted you. I could have put the belt on you. I didn't need the belt. I was a gimmick. I was over. I didn't need a belt. I could have chased you to make twice as much money as you ever did. I used to tease him about it. I used to drive him crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild because back then, you know, like when Mr. Wonderful didn't want to do the job, I said, well, here's the deal, Paul. I was going to come back with you 3 times in the Philadelphia Spectrum, and you're going to make a bunch of money. But now, since you're not going to do a job, we're going to do a DQ or a count out or something like that. And then Vince is going to bring somebody else back. So you'll go wrestle Coco Beware or something next time we're here instead of me. You know, you'll be making $1,000 instead of 20,000, you know.
It's so fascinating to me. I mean, so full disclosure, like Cody and I, we didn't come from a wrestling family. You know, we didn't grow up watching the live matches. Our earliest exposure to you was through movies. Like one of our earliest memories was like the Three Ninjas movie that you were in.
Oh, wow.
I remember we were going on road trips, you know, in our family's truck, and that was, you know, the Three Ninjas. Cody, what was the theme park?
Big Dragon.
Yeah.
Mega Mountain.
Mega Mountain.
Dave the Dragon. Or Dave Dragon. And so like we have one older brother. So the Three Ninjas, we love the movie. You know, and then when you were in it was pretty cool. I watched it the other night for nostalgic purposes. And,
strictly for educational purposes, right?
This was
it's
awesome.
a classic.
And truly on road trips. I mean, that was like one of the DVDs, like put it in the TV. We gotta watch this.
Wow.
But where I want to go with that, Hulk, is that like, so for reference, our podcast, I mean, there's a lot of diverse listeners. I mean, certainly we're not a wrestling podcast. We have actors and musicians and all sorts of people with different walks of life. And so there's a lot of people who are listening who probably don't have the greatest education on just the world of professional wrestling, right?
Yeah.
And they hear professional wrestling, and the first thing that comes up is, boom, that F word, right? They think fake, right?
Yeah.
And they write it off. But
Right.
I think in the name of that, you know, there's this really complicated world of all these layers and nuance and drama behind the scenes. Is it acting? Is it not? Is there drama that's been going on many years? So I'd be curious. I mean, I don't think there's anybody on the planet better than you to summarize what makes professional wrestling so special. I'd love to hear you maybe a high level look at how do you think about just the art that is professional wrestling?
Professional wrestling, once you understand, I mean, I've been I was in the business 40 years, and I still am a mark. I'm not smart yet, you know, and I learn every day. It's like I watched Edge jump off the cage the other night.
Yeah.
Haven't talked to him yet, but trained professional, you know, twilight of his career, jumps off the top. Please explain that to me.
Huh.
He's over. Most guys that go up and do that sometimes do that because they're not over enough. You know, Edge was over, you know, and to do that, I mean, I just don't get it. I haven't called him yet. I was going to call him last night, but I fell asleep. But I just want to go, please explain that to me.
Huh.
You know, because you're over like a son of a gun. You didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, you really didn't need to go up there. And if you're going to go up there, it doesn't mean anything unless you do something better than Mick Foley did. Because Mick Foley got thrown off the top of the cage and hit the table. If you're going to beat Mick Foley, you need to be thrown off the top of the cage with no table, you know? And so I just didn't get it because it didn't mean anything because Edge was so over.
Wow.
Just so over. He didn't need that. You know, now Mick Foley, that's part of Mick Foley's gimmick, you know?
Okay.
And I apologize to Mick Foley because one time I said something bad about his work and it was total ignorance on my part. It wasn't jealousy, wasn't meant to be mean. It was total ignorance. I didn't realize how good he really was.
Yeah.
The first time I saw him after all those years, first thing I did was apologize to him, you know? And what Mick Foley does is part of his gimmick and nobody does it better than him. Plus he can work on top of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not just somebody that's diving off the top of the cage. He can really work too. So
yeah, he's a master performance artist. It's crazy.
Man, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
So, you know, the whole thing with Edge is, a little different. But from a high level
Yeah.
of professional wrestling, to say it's fake, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue with people about it. If that's what they say it is, I'm way beyond the point of semantics, And so if it's fake, it's okay. But if you really want to talk about it, it's not fake, okay? It's really not fake. It's predetermined.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm here to tell you what happens in that ring from bell to bell after the last 10 years having 25 surgeries. If it's fake, I wish somebody would have given me the memo. Okay. Because I wouldn't have had 10 back surgeries.
Yeah.
Both knees replaced, both hips replaced, 2 shoulder surgeries, abdominal surgery, 4 times surgery on my orbital socket from getting my face kicked in. So if that's all fake, I missed the memo.
Yeah.
So you really do get hurt in there. But the goal is, the ultimate goal is to go in the ring and have a match with a guy and just beat the crap out of each other and make it very physical and come out of the ring the same shape you were before you went in. That's never happened to me because usually I'm so clumsy I'll trip and hurt myself. But, that's the goal. That's the art form,
Yeah.
So, once you understand the business, which a lot of people are smart marks and they think they're smart. There's a lot of wrestlers in the business that tiz on, kiz Arnie and think they're smiz art. I'm here to tell you, after 40 years, you never completely get smartened up. There's no such thing as getting smartened up because it changes so much. It's kind of like an energy thing that you have to follow and keep up with. If you can keep up with it, that's good. But you're never going to say, okay, I'm smartened up because tomorrow it'll change.
Yeah.
I never thought it would be what it is today.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's always evolving.
Yes,
which
it is, bro.
Something I'm super curious to ask
I'd
you
like
about.
take a second break to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Take
Go
your
for
I'll
time.
be right back.
Good talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's fun. Hulk, we were just telling Ron about my favorite little drink here. You ever tried Olipop? You ever heard of Olipop here?
Never heard of it.
This is a good one. They have it at like Whole Foods and stuff. It's like an all natural soda. There's like prebiotics and stuff.
Oh, cool, man.
Anyway, this is my latest crack cocaine.
Oh,
I'm
strong.
telling everybody about it, but Olipop. So
Where do you guys live at?
We're in suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great out here. Well, Hulk, what I was going to ask you was something I've been super curious about is talking about like the business of wrestling. So and I'll preface that with there's the business of wrestling, but then there's all the different business opportunities that come around it. So I'm curious to kind of get into your mind and understand like what the revenue streams were like as far as, are you signing a contract for a fight? Are you signing a contract? Is it for the year? Is it so that's a revenue stream? Then is it like merchandise and stuff outside of that? Can like you walk us through, in the prime of your career, what were those streams like and how did you build the business? Because I know you have a business mind.
Well, at the end of the day,
friends, this episode is brought to you by Olipop. If you're anything like me, you love the taste of soda, but generally can't justify drinking it due to its high levels of sugar and all sorts of other harmful artificial ingredients. Well, the good news is you can have your cake and eat it too with Olipop. True story. Long before we had any kind of partnership with these guys, I was drinking this all the time, and my friends can all attest that I just won't shut up about it. Heck, we were just literally talking to Hulk about it. Olipop is the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Each drink has only 2 to 5 grams of sugar. For reference, a can of Coke has 39 grams of sugar, and Fanta has 44. Olipop comes in all sorts of flavors such as vintage cola, cherry cola, strawberry vanilla, which is what I'm sipping on right now, watermelon lime, and root beer, and many others. You can find Olipop online at drinkolipop.com or in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, such as Target, Whole Foods, and Walmart. This podcast is powered by Rode, the world's leading tech brand for content creators. And this podcast was recorded on the Rodecaster Pro 2, the ultimate all-in-one podcasting solution. Want to start your own podcast? Check Rode's incredible audio products at rode.com. That's RODE.com.
everybody cuts their own deal.
Yeah.
Everybody's deal is different. And so for me, people go, well, wrestling's a work. Okay. Well, to me, wrestling's always been a shoot because it's about the money and the miles, how far you travel and how long do you sit in the car how much time are you away from home, flying, hotel rooms, and how much of your life is wasted on the road and how much you get paid for it. So to me, that's not a work, that's a shoot, because when you're in the ring with somebody like Andre the Giant, and all of a sudden one guy's getting paid more than the other, that's not a work to me, you know? So if I'm in the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin and he's making more money than me, that's a shoot to me. I want his spot, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing when I went to work, actually I wrestled way before I went to work for the WWF, but when I went to work for Vince McMahon Sr. in 1977, he always paid the champion, Bob Backlund, more than the guy he wrestled.
Okay.
And so that's not a work. If good guys and bad guys don't matter, and if you lose a match, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, because if you lose a match, your merchandise isn't going to sell as much as The Rock's is. That beat you.
Right.
You know, now the only exception that was made was when I did the NWO thing. I became a bad guy. It was so cool. My merchandise sold like crazy. I'd get beat every night as a bad guy, you know, because I'd lie and cheat, slipped on banana peel. Somebody pissed on my back and said it was raining. You know, sun was in my eyes, you know.
Yeah, because that was the whole storyline, and you were milking that storyline.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, wrestling's always been a shoot to me, because when one guy gets paid more than the other, that's a shoot to me.
Yeah.
That's not a work. Well, it doesn't matter who wins or loses. Oh, yeah, it does. You know, and so I've always looked at it that way. So I made sure I was always in that position.
Okay.
Vince Sr. ran the business. He basically paid the champion more than the guy he wrestled.
Okay.
So Vince Jr. took over, and I came back and beat the Iron Sheik in the Garden that first night. Vince McMahon Sr. paid me for that night.
Okay.
And Vince McMahon Sr. at that time, when I beat the Iron Sheik, was still running the business. Vince hadn't bought it yet from his dad. So he paid me for that night. And I kind of knew what the Iron Sheik got paid, and I get paid a lot more. So the very next month I was in the Garden, my check was about half as much as it was when I beat the Iron Sheik, and it was sold out again. And Junior paid me. So right away, drew a line in the sand. Hey, brother, just burned a huge bridge in Minnesota. Was there 3 years working with Vern Gagne. Your dad and I made a deal. You and I made a deal, Vince. If the deal is off, I'll go back and rebuild that bridge. So I kept making more than the guy wrestled for as long as I could.
Yeah.
For it kind of like things evened out. But,
okay,
you know, even when we got to WrestleMania 3 with me and Andre the Giant, it was, you know, and if Andre knew about it, he'd be very upset.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's hard to say that, you know, this business is a work when guys like Roman Reigns, because his t-shirts are selling more than, you know, whoever else. It's hard for me to say that's a work. But
so
what was the question? Because I forgot.
Yeah. Oh no. That's super helpful. So talking, kind of understanding the streams of revenue. So obviously, one of the big checks is coming from the promotion,
right?
But even from a bit of an outsider, is that like the majority of your revenue that year is like from the promotion, or is it then you have all your merchandise? Do you own your merchandise?
Licensing deals?
And then are the movie deals outside of that? Like even general percentages, is it like 70% is the promotion? Like help wrap my head around that.
Well, it depends, you know, the type of money that The Rock is making now for doing movies.
Yeah.
If I was making that kind of money, I'd have never quit making movies. Even though I hate the process and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I made a whole bunch of low budget films, you know, Mr. Nanny, Suburban Commando, Deep. What was some of the other ones? There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, you were in the Gremlins.
Gremlins.
Rocky 3 was the big first one that blew up. Yeah.
Mackenzie's Island. There's a bunch of them with Robert Duvall, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. There was a bunch of them I made. That's what I'm thinking about. But there's several low budget. That guy from The Wolf of Wall Street, Brian Badal, gave me money to make a couple movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Secret Agent Club. Can't remember that. There's a bunch of them, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the time, I was only making a couple $1 million a movie, you know, and it was, you know, $2.5-3 million a movie. And it was taking me out of the wrestling business for 45, 60 days at a time. I could make a lot more money wrestling than that.
Okay.
You know, back in the day. So, you know, for me to go make these movies and stuff, you know, not only was I getting pulled out of the mix as far as wrestling, as I was out of that mix for 60 or 90 days or whatever it was, someone could stumble in and get lucky and steal my spot.
Right.
So I was freaked out the whole time.
You're always on guard. You got to protect that spot.
Yeah, I was so freaked out the whole time. I was in some Winnebago on the side of the Sony sound stage for a couple months. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Plus, I hated the process of sitting around for 14 hours a day when I could be traveling, wrestling, and having a blast with my friends, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, the main revenue, because I don't know if it was Kevin Nash or somebody said that, there were never any guaranteed contracts till we came along. I think Kevin Nash might have said it.
Okay.
But when I came back, January 23rd, 1984, I won the belt, but I was back a couple months before then doing TV. I had a guaranteed contract back then.
Okay.
I had a 10-year guaranteed contract back.
Wow.
And that was way before they signed Kevin Nash, and it was 20 years before that, or 15 years before that. So,
wow.
And Vince wanted to lock me down because at the time I had the gimmick figured out, and it was so hot.
Yeah.
I was kind of like leading the charge on a lot of fronts. So, the guaranteed contract was a constant, but then at the time, I started making movies too. So I was making a movie every couple of movies a year, and that was extra money on the side. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if you remember the 19. You guys don't remember. You weren't even born back then. The 1900 number.
No.
There was a line. You can Google it or look it up. It's 1900 Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
That was a hotline that kids could call. And they get like their parents' credit card. And they'd stay on the darn phone all night, bro, talking to me.
That's
I had
awesome.
all the pre-recorded messages about training and vitamins, storylines about guys I was wrestling. I made a ton of money on that 1900 number.
So that was like subscriptions before subscription.
Right. Did you just pull it up on your computer?
I did. Yeah.
So you see it, right?
Yep.
Like a hotline thing.
Yep.
And so I was killing it on that and doing the movies, and then my merchandise was selling like crazy.
And those are all super scalable because those are essentially like product that like you could have 10 people buy your product, or 10,000 people buy your product, and you don't have to put in any more time, essentially.
Right. And you got to realize, when I was generating all this revenue, there was no internet. Actually, when I first started, there was not even cell phones.
Yeah.
There weren't even cell phones. I remember when I was married to Linda, and we had Brooke. Brooke was born in 88. It was a couple years. Or no, it was right when Brooke got born. I think I had my first cell phone in 88.
Yeah. Okay.
But before then, I started wrestling in 77. There were no cell phones.
Yeah.
No internet, none of that stuff. So, I didn't have that vehicle like Stone Cold and The Rock has, to generate crazy money. But still, I did really, really well because I was the only game in town for a long time.
Yeah.
So those are all viable revenue sources. The merchandise was a major one. Of course, the guaranteed salary on the contract.
Yeah.
Was your security and your home run. And then I was picking up other things like right guard commercials.
Okay.
Different things like that. I was always getting called to do different things. So
cool.
It was it's the sum of all the parts. It was a good job.
Yeah. And then how has that shifted today? Because even now your personal brand is massive. You could be in Walmart or whatever, and they're selling toys and there's shirts, new products. You have different lines. I know you've gotten in the CBD business. Seems like all sorts of stuff you've been involved.
Yeah, that's over. If we talk about that for a second,
got it. Cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was a company called Karma, and I was approached by a bunch of people, and some of the talent they had was Ric Flair, and some was Mike Tyson. So I'm pretty sure you could figure out who approached me.
Yeah.
And you need to do this, that, and the other, and had to do with nicotine vapes, had to do with CBD, had to do with THC, and it just didn't feel. You got to have a feel for something, man. You got to. It just didn't feel like me for the brand.
Okay. Yeah.
And a situation where they started talking numbers and generating revenue. I went, okay, well, we'll try it. Well, as soon as I got into it for a couple months, I pulled the plug on it. I got right out because it just didn't work for me. The whole training, prayers, and vitamins. Hey, why don't you go smoke a cigarette? It just doesn't work for me.
Didn't line up with your values.
Oh no, it just wasn't. It was not in my lane. So I shut it down as quick as I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did. And it just didn't feel right from day one.
So how does, I mean, even acknowledging that here, like that's making a decision, like you're putting your brand behind something and then changing lanes on that in a public way. How do you navigate that? Because it always sucks to have to like reel it back in then.
And we weren't that far down the road.
Okay.
A lot of the people I had that I was doing business with, things were rolling out and things were supposed to be at a certain point, but they really weren't. So it wasn't that hard to really roll it back.
Cool.
And so, nothing against anybody. It's not for me, a lot of good people there with the company, a lot of good products, but it's not my lane, and it's the first time in a long time I've made a decision that I didn't feel 100% about. So I just couldn't handle it,
Yeah. Well, good for you for
That's with
changing
my
lanes.
faith, my faith, bro, and everything. It just did nothing with the decision was synced up with me. It wasn't me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something, I mean, talking about faith, you've been very public about recently. I mean, I think you talked about becoming Christian at a young age, but now it's, you say being baptized was the most important day of your life.
Yes, it was.
And that was a handful of months ago. Can you even talk us through like what this evolution of a faith journey you've been on, what's that looked like?
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride, brother, because when I was growing up, I took guitar lessons, and played junior high football. And as I was playing junior high football, some of these Ron and Don Satterwhite, they were twins, Ron and Don Satterwhite. They both became ministers.
Okay.
In high school, there were these big, clunky guys, big monster kids. So I was friends with. I was as big and as fat, as dumpy as they were, We all hung out. So they taught me into playing football and stuff. Yeah. And so they were at this, it was like an after schools club, and this guy named Hank Lindstrom ran. He was a minister. It was called Christian Youth Ranch.
Okay.
So they would go there and they'd read scripture and discuss scripture, and they would sing all these religious songs. Well, they had no music. So Ron and Don Satterwhite goes, "Hey, Terry, you play guitar. Why don't you come down and play guitar?" Okay, you, because I love playing guitar.
Yeah.
So I go down and I started playing all these songs with him. And actually, it was a couple years later when I was 14 years old, I accepted Christ as my savior, and I was really good for a while until I got into high school. And then I kind of derailed, and of course, first thing you do when you get in high school is go to a football game and sneak a beer. Back in the day, I don't know what it's like now, but I don't know what they're sneaking nowadays.
All sorts of substances. Yeah. They're getting even more creative out there, believe me.
Back then it was sneak a beer,
Yeah.
And so then it went to the rock and roll band and all that debauchery. And then it went into the wrestling business. And it was kind of like I was making bad choices and crashing a lot and not, following through with stuff. And I created this character with the training, prayers, and vitamins. The character was impeccable.
Yeah.
Right.
It made Terry Bollea a better person. It brought me up.
Mm-hmm.
Brought me up so much that, I made a couple really big mistakes on a personal and business level. And I just got tired of crashing and burning, man. And I went through a second divorce. And, I always believed, even with divorce number one, I used to brag that I was the only world's champion that was never divorced. I thought, for better or worse, until death do us part, I thought that was serious because it's a contract with God.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my first wife didn't think it was serious, and apparently my second wife didn't either. But when she split, I kind of like went back to my faith. She split, my second wife, I stayed in the house for 2 months, and I stayed in prayer, didn't turn the TV on at all. If you come to my house, I've got a Bible in every room. You got like 7 or 8 of them in my office, 7 or 8 of them upstairs. I've got them everywhere because my eyes are not good. So I get the ones with the real large print,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cross-reference with study Bibles because I do read a lot. And sometimes 2-3 books at a time. I just love to read.
Wow.
So, all of a sudden I went deep in prayer. And God, this is weird. I have a hard time talking about this.
Yeah.
And No TV, no nothing. I wouldn't even leave the house to go eat dinner, or anywhere. I would have people bring groceries to me. I hired this lady to cook for me and bring groceries to me. So, this is the second time this has happened now. I'm going through a divorce. So I'm actually speaking out loud in the house. And I talk to God in my home. I speak out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Like when God said, let there be light, he didn't whisper, he spoke it out.
Right. Yeah.
So I would speak out inside in the house. I kept, why is this happening to me? Please, God, why is this happening? I would say it hundreds of times a day. And I'd wear myself out with it, and all of a sudden I kind of fell asleep in my easy chair. And I was just thinking, why is this happening to me again? Why am I going through this divorce? Basically, both wives that left me fell in love with younger people, And so it was kind of like a head trip, for an older guy. So I kept thinking, why is this happening to me? And right when I was getting ready to fall asleep, it wasn't a whisper, but it was like if somebody was sitting here going, Cody, listen to me,
Yeah.
It was that clear, bro. It was, I'm putting you through a cleansing.
Whoa. Wow.
I looked around and went, what? And I heard it. I heard it as plain as day. I'm putting you through a cleansing. And as soon as I heard that, I knew exactly what it was and who was talking to me.
Huh.
And so from that moment forward, I got up out of the house, started working out, started going to the grocery store, started moving around, and just recommitted myself to, my faith, no drinking, no craziness, no, try to eliminate as much as I can, cussing at all, never a GD word, never an F word, never any of that stuff anymore. I'll slip every once in a while and say, like Ron Simmons, damn, or say something like that. But, kind of cleaned it up. And then I was praying, not that I wanted to get married again.
Yeah.
But I was praying to find somebody that was loyal and honest, because it's really hard to find that.
Yeah. Once that trust is broken.
Yeah. And so then I ran into Sky, and we started talking. And once we made eye contact, she sat down. She wouldn't leave. So we started talking, and she goes, and then as I got to know her, right the night before she met me, she'd been praying for loyalty and honesty, in a person. So we just kind of clicked,
Wow.
And we went deep into our faith. She reads a lot with me. And I got her to start going to church every Sunday with me, because she went to Episcopalian church.
Okay.
And I was Southern Baptist. And I told her what the similarities are. And she'd probably like this better, especially her kids will probably stay awake in my church instead of sleeping in her church, because all our kids would do would be sleeping while the minister was talking in the Episcopalian church. And then I got her son, now that we're married, I've got her son, Hayden. He's going to high school at Indian Rocks Christian.
Cool.
And our oldest son, Maddox, is high functioning autistic.
Okay.
He has to go to a special school, but since he's with me now, he didn't have a male presence in his life. Since he's with me, he lifts weights every day. He goes to jujitsu 4 times a week.
Oh, wow.
He drives a car. I bought him a Charger. He drives a car, and he has a job.
Wow.
And he's completely changed from the day I met him.
Wow.
Because the day I met him, he wouldn't even go outside or leave his room. So now I got him training. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He's 17 years old. But I said, just take it. You're probably better off right now. You need to focus on jiu-jitsu. I said, just keep doing what you're doing. So, it's a situation where once I found the right person, I was baptized when I was like 6 years old, but I don't really remember it.
Okay.
So we went and, once we rededicated our life to Christ, that was the only thing to do, was to start over and publicly let everyone know what team we're on, because there's only 2 teams, brother. You're either on his team or you're not. So there's no in between. There's no middle of the road. So
going through that, I mean, that's like, you shared a lot of life there with us. There's a lot of ups and downs, I'm sure, between there. And now it's like you've made that public proclamation of faith. And Kyler and I were both Christians as well. And I think when we heard your story and just the challenges you went through and feeling like you just kept hitting roadblocks, I think it resonated a lot with us and inspired us a lot to see someone like you that, has had a lot of, difficult things in life that you've been through to then come out and say like, I was making foolish decisions, through these times, and I want to like publicly, not just like, quietly with your family, but it's publicly say, I'm now choosing God in these decisions. Like what, I guess, has it been more freeing, or what, even when you look at like your priorities in life, how has that shifted once you've just kind of, it seems like you're all in right now.
Oh, way in, bro. There's no turning back now, because once you accept him and once you walk in the light and once you realize he's with you, moment of the day, and the protection he provides for you, you wouldn't want to go back to try to drive the car yourself again, because crashing and burning, I don't care how good of a driver you are, it doesn't work out. So it's basically a test of faith, and when you think about Jesus Christ being the perfect human being that never even sinned, and you see how he was persecuted and tortured, and what they did to him, there's nothing they can do to me, that would change the way I feel, because it's part of this whole being a Christian and being a believer is it's a test of faith.
Yeah.
And I refuse to back down from that. So I'm way all in, there's no doubt about it. I could never go back to the way I was.
Well, it's powerful. And I think it's so valuable that you did make a public proclamation, because a lot of people, have looked up to you for all this time. And even like a conversation right now that's really like in the weeds of this, I think is valuable, because even like Cody and I being Christians, a lot of our friends, different people in our world, I mean, all of our faith journeys, they're exactly that. It's a roller coaster ride. There's ups and downs. I can only speak for myself that there's been times in my life, like I was saved when I was very young, but there's been so many times that I've been further away from God, have questioned faith altogether, Christianity altogether. I mean, I've seen it all.
Right.
Have ventured in years past into more kind of new agey stuff. I mean, exploring different religions to ultimately come back to Christ and what I knew all along. But I'd be curious to ask you to somebody listening to this who's kind of on the fence or maybe skeptical about God or specifically about Christianity, like, what do you have to say to them?
Well, that's tough. It'd have to be
a big question.
Case by case basis, but with the diversity that's going on now and how we're suffering and what's going on in the world with, the whole world's falling apart. When you look at prophecies from the Euphrates River drying up to the three red heifers, and if you actually understand the cadence and the way over 4,000 years now, the Bible is predicting exactly what's going to happen, in this world, unless we bow down and recommit ourselves to him. He will, if we do bow down and recommit ourselves to him, he said he'd heal our land and heal our people. But it's a situation that I would tell somebody, and I'm trying not to be a Bible thumper, but what do you have to lose? I mean, if, you commit yourself, and this is just a real layman, simplistic way to look at things, which doesn't hold any water. But if you don't believe in him and I'm right, you're done, But if I'm right and you go ahead and accept Christ as your savior, even if you're wrong, what do you have to lose? You know what I'm saying? It's a weird way to look at things.
Yeah.
But that would be probably my first pitch that somebody that was pretty hard-headed. And I don't have the right verbiage to explain it because I've never been asked this question before. But, for me, I've never seen anything that I've read that has predicted the prophecies and everything's come true that's in that Bible that I've read. And when you talk about 500 different people, witnessing him rise from that tomb and seeing and speaking with him while he was still on earth. And if it was fake, like wrestling is supposed to be, and this never happened, why did so many people die? Why would people fed lions boiled in water over some? If this didn't happen, why would someone stand that ground for him?
Right.
So it's just that's a tough question, man. I really don't know exactly how I could win someone over, other than just having him read and what it's done for me. It's a hard question. I really don't know. The first thing I'd say.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard question for me too. And it really, even, it was so cool. Before we sat down with you, Hulk, we were talking to your buddy Ron for a long time, and he was sharing his testimony. He was sharing about his faith, and what we all have in common is it's our lived life experience.
Yes.
So, to your point, like, it's not going to be one size fits all, but it's like, if you actually give this a shot, like genuinely in your heart, give it a shot, it's crazy. It's crazy the kind of peace that you can find. And it's almost like unless you're sipping the Kool-Aid, right? Or unless you're willing to say, hey, let's see what this is about. It's hard to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Probably impossible.
I mean, I still do like dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm a car guy, and I don't know if you've heard of the Dodge Demon 170s.
Yeah.
They're 1,000 horsepower. They're real race cars.
It's ridiculous. You
can get them the roll cages or parachutes or whatever. And a buddy of mine's father came down. He's my same age, and he wanted me to give him a ride in this car. And I mean, I hit it, I really put my foot in it right when the car was going up on two wheels and getting ready to roll. This was like a week ago. I tapped the brake and hit the gas again. I firmly believe that that's him going, haven't you learned your lesson yet? Don't you realize, knucklehead, that, you can't do this stupid stuff like this? So when situations like that come up, it wasn't anything except the grace of God that I didn't get killed or kill somebody, and just dumb stuff, And so it kind of like, you need to surround yourself with like-minded people also. Like with Ron,
Yeah.
When I was going through the toughest time of my life, this last situation I was in, going through the divorce, I was day drinking during the day. And then by 4 or 5 o'clock, I'd be lit and I would head out that night. And I told Ron a couple of times, I don't even remember driving home. I could have killed somebody or whatever. And he came over one day, and I don't know if you know what White Claws are.
Yeah, like the drink.
Right. And they make a White Claw that's called a Surge, which is like 8%. It's really strong.
Wow.
Well, I had like 12 cases stacked up in my gym. And I was so proud that I had so many Surges, because when they first came out, they were hard to find on the beach. So I was going to all the grocery stores, buying up all the ones I could.
Yeah.
I had them all stacked up. And I was day drinking and Ronnie came in, he goes, well, he looked at the huge stack and all the way up to the roof. He goes, who do you serve? I kind of went, wow, that's really strong. Who do you serve? Do you serve God? Do you serve that alcohol? Those things were gone the next day.
Yeah.
Got rid of them. And I quit drinking because of him.
Oh, wow.
Because he used to be not as good as he is now. He drank a lot. And just telling the truth.
Tell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he helped me make that change.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so it's not sometimes you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And just him being my friend and kind of like pointing things out, because I was, doing a lot of reading and trying to find myself and stuff like that. And just something that simple.
Yeah.
Said, who do you serve?
Wow.
It really, really woke me up,
Wow.
Powerful.
It's like Ronnie says, iron sharpen iron, so
I love that.
Needed him.
He was showing us the shirts earlier, and it's that reminder. I think you hit the nail on the head of like having like-minded people around you, because you have to have.
I got myself all messed up talking about that.
No, you're good.
You have to have the sounding boards around you, right? Because ultimately we are going to mess up, and we need people that have conviction as well to call us out. And we all gotta help each other, right? I mean, that's the reality. I think of the verse, it's what is it? Psalm 37:4 says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I think like that's talking about the closer you get to God, the desires that you have are going to end up being his. So like alcohol, for instance, is no longer going to be that desire, right? But until
you get to that point. Like it is the desire.
Yeah.
And it's not that
And the
we're
pain-
perfect. It's not that we're going to be perfect in it, but it's more so just that battle between spirit and flesh. And like the more you're walking in like with the spirit, the more he kind of gives you that operating system to see just like, why would you even want that? Even if you're not going to walk that walk perfectly, it's crazy.
Well, I've learned a lot of stuff listening to different ministers. And when I was going to a church in Culver City called Agape,
Okay.
you've seen the DVD, the movie, The Secret.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a guy named Michael Beckwith in there, a black guy with dreads, long dreads, Michael Beckwith. I was going to his church for a while, and he said something one time about walking in the light. And that was the one thing that resonated with me, walking in that God presence, that light. That when you walk in the room, you get the highest vibration of anybody in the room. It's being that one with God. So when I approach people, even really negative people, you can feel someone's aura when they come in the room.
Yeah.
There's certain wrestlers and certain promoters that when they walk in the room, you can feel how evil they are, And so what I try to do is when I talk to someone, that still small voice, that gut feeling, that still small voice, I call it that God presence, the Spirit of Christ.
Yeah.
I try to go there with people and I show them my still small voice, and that's kind of like how I can connect with people right away that are on a totally, and I don't want to lower my vibration to communicate with somebody. My whole thing is to bring them up to as close to vibing as where I'm at. So I kind of been using that because everybody has that God presence in them, whether they know it or not.
The Holy Spirit.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I call it the Spirit of Christ to try to find that fine line to where I can tap into them. Then I show them mine, and it's good for creating communication. When it's hard to communicate with people a lot that aren't believers,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, thanks for sharing. Cause the struggle is real and will always be real. And yeah, I think it's just cool to hear. I think this is the first time we're having time to truly sit down with you and get to know you on a deeper level than I guess some of the calls that we've had with you. But it's easy to look at someone like you that's been in the limelight, that you're on cloud nine, untouchable, living this great life. But to hear vulnerability is like we all feel that. We all feel that in different ways. So I appreciate you, being vulnerable in that, because people need to hear that. And that's that really inspired Kyler and I. Yeah, I'm even curious, and we'll start to wrap up here because Hulk, we know you're very busy and appreciate your time here. But even on this note of vulnerability, you've been so vulnerable with us. You've been more and more just vulnerable with the world and sharing your heart where you are, being real. I think that's what people are really picking up on. But when I look back at your career, and even, we read your book and learned a lot about your story through that. But you talked about just how busy the wrestling life was, traveling all the time, wrestling, putting on shows, being in multiple cities in the same day. And you talked about how you didn't have any time for your emotions or for feelings. It was kind of like being numb. But, the Terry that we're talking to right now, you're very open about this. This is real. When do you feel like that shift started to happen in your life? Like going from maybe that numbness, that busyness to just like, hey, I'm gonna let it out, or even being in touch with your own feelings?
I think just because, like I said, the crashing and burning was a constant with me,
Yeah.
It was from just always just not really being satisfied or completely happy, with that peace, and it was just the business I was in. You talk about sharks in the Gulf of Mexico, that's nothing compared to what's in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
And so, and especially the position I was in, I had this crazy target on my back that I was the one that everybody was trying to bring down. If it wasn't physically, it was on a business level, or if they could start a rumor or whatever they could do, whatever it would take to kind of like, slow me down or shoot me down. So I kind of learned, it was just the atmosphere, to rise above that, you basically had to follow your heart or your instinct or your faith. So I noticed it a lot. toward the mid 90s when all these wrestlers were dying, you know.
Yeah.
And it really got out of control because it was like, you know, baseball or football or basketball that I don't even know the numbers. It could be like 20 people or 30 people in 3 or 4 years that had died. But in wrestling, they're like 300, you know, it was like, and this whole thing was just so wrong, you know, that I kind of like switched gears, you know, and started getting better and cleaning things up every single day. But it was probably the mid 90s where I really got uncomfortable with the situation and the people I was around. And there were a lot of really good people, good guys. But then there were just the business itself condoned this negative behavior, you know, and it was something that was accepted, you know, and that's part of what wrestling is all about, or even the promoters, you know, would go along with it, you know. So I just probably mid 90s is where I felt this really weird change where I pretty much quit working. You know, I walked. It's been like 20 years, bro. I walked. You know, I have not taken any movies, no commercials. I haven't done anything for about the last 20 years. But now that I got remarried a couple of years ago, I know on paper it doesn't look good, you know, for a 70-year-old man to marry a 48-year-old woman with 3 young kids. But I fell in love with the kids, and it was a wrap, you know. You know, to have a 17-year-old autistic son and a 15-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, bro, I had to skip up, kick out, boom, get a shoulder up and get ready to run around the block again because these kids put spring in my step.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it made me excited to get back involved, you know, but get back involved in a different way this time, you know, and just be real clear, real transparent, and real honest. That's why that whole thing with the vapes and stuff didn't work for me, man. You know, once again, I was started to make a wrong move, and before I let it go too far, I shut it down immediately. You know, probably about a month and a half after I did it, and you know, it's just a whole new way of looking at things now. You know, now that especially baptized and renewing my faith and being anew again is really a huge opportunity, and it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a pretty amazing way to kind of dial things back as we wrap with you. And I just want to say, like, we appreciate so much who you are, and especially like what you're doing right now. I see the lives that you're impacting and just the vulnerability, talking about your faith, but also just your life, the ups and downs of it. And you're impacting so many lives right here, right now. So it's really incredible. And we can't say how much we appreciate this.
Well, it's you know, the thing that I realize is, you know, I wasn't put here to be the greatest wrestler, if that is the case. I realize now that all that time and all that communication with the fans worldwide. I mean, like I was telling somebody the other day, had like the top, I don't know where it was, see if I could find it. Had like the top, I guess I turned my phone off. About the top 5 most famous athletes in the world. Number 1 was Kobe Bryant. I was number 2.
Yeah. Wow.
Then they had Shaq. They had Shaq. Who else was there? Ronnie Shaq and Ali.
Michael Jordan, maybe.
And
Jordan
LeBron.
up there.
They didn't have
LeBron?
Michael Jordan in there.
Maybe.
Oh,
Hey, come on.
God.
Where's the love for Chicago?
Wow. So anyway, I just realized that, you know, and I realized that I get it now. All that stuff I went through, like they might, they might know Tom Brady in Chicago, you know, but in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malaysia,
yeah,
they might not really know who he is. But I've been pumping wrestling in there for 40 years. Everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is. I mean, there's not a stone that's been unturned where I haven't been on TV somewhere. Past 40 years. So like I was telling Ronnie, I now realize that this whole wrestling thing is not why I was here. That was set up for greatness, to be a vessel for our Lord and Savior, you know, pass the message along. So I understand now why I'm here. You know, it's not because I, you know, was wrestling or not because I was, you know, at the right place at the right time. This was a gift that was given to me so I could share, you know, this faith.
Wow.
And
wow.
So I understand it now, where for a long time I didn't understand, but now I really get it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a note to myself that I'm taking in real time, that I know, I mean, I'm guilty of this. I think every human being to a certain degree, we conflate our identity with our job or whatever it is that we're tied up in as like, that's the Cody that people know. This is the Kyler people know. That's the Hulk Hogan or the Terry, you know? But it's just like, it's opening my eyes to see. I mean, it sounds like you're talking with the most purpose and clarity that you've maybe ever had in life. And yet you're saying that wrestling, yeah, that was amazing because it built this platform. But here's my purpose. It's not tied up in the wrestler guy, you know.
Well, sometimes you have to use the character to your advantage to get to people. Like, you know,
Right.
as I go home, the headband comes off the bald head, and I'm Terry instantly. If you go in my house, you know, there's some wrestlers, you know, Canadian wrestlers and a bunch of other guys that if you walk in their house, it's wall-to-wall title belts and pictures of themselves. I got none of that in my house.
Mm-hmm.
No wrestling pictures at all in my house, you know, because that's not me. I'm Terry. I'm not Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You know, so and a lot of guys can't separate that. But what you do realize is to get to people or to talk to people or connect with people, sometimes you have to give them a little of the gimmick, brother, you know?
Right.
And so when I walk out the front door, if the mailman goes, "Hey, good morning, sir," they're not going to want me to answer as Terry.
Yeah.
You go, "Hey, man, good morning. How are you?" I go, "Hey, what's up, brother? How you doing?" I have to give them a little bit. And, you know, I use to my advantage when I talk to kids, or I just talked to like 350 kids at our church about a month ago.
Oh, cool.
I wanted to hear the Hulk Hogan gimmick, you know, so started out getting them hooked, and then we got serious, you know.
Yeah.
So you use it to your advantage, and now I understand with all the tools I've been given, you know, as long as I don't break down and start crying like a baby and ruin everything, you know, I realize the gifts I've been given and what my job is here now. I understand what I'm supposed to be doing now. Where before I was just running around like an idiot without a purpose. You know, but once you get it, you figure it out, man. It's really a beautiful thing. And my wife is totally committed. So it's the first time I've been married to a believer.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we can wrap up here. Kai, did you want to? Kyler had this fun idea of doing a rapid fire round of naming a wrestler and having you say a word that describes them. So Kai,
yeah, we'll end up. Why not? If you're cool with that,
end on this.
Yep. We'll end rapid fire round. I'll name a wrestler. You describe them in one word. No wrong answers.
Am I the babyface Hulk Hogan, or am I the heel Hollywood?
You're whatever shows up.
Oh gosh, watch out! All right, let's do it.
Here we go. Andre the Giant.
Greatest of all time. Great.
The Rock.
The Rock.
Oh, sorry, Cody. Here, we can take turns.
Yeah. The Rock.
Gimmick.
Undertaker.
Solid.
Steve Austin.
Number 2.
Ric Flair.
Number 3.
Roman Reigns.
Future.
Roddy Piper.
Good friend.
We got Triple H.
Honest.
Dusty Rhodes.
Best.
And Cody Rhodes.
Greatness.
Wow.
Cool.
That's awesome. Well, we'll end it there.
Oh, you guys don't be strangers. Do you ever come down in Florida?
We're planning to come and visit our brother here soon, so we'll definitely let you know.
Hulk, Terry, this has been the best. A huge honor to us.
Well, thank you guys. Don't be strangers.
All right.
you.
Thanks, Hulk.
Absolutely.
Have a good rest of your day.